Today, I want to look at one more loaded question that Jesus asked. And this question that we're going to see in a moment, it has so much more punch if you will think about it through a particular frame of mind. And so here's what I want you to do for the next couple of moments. I want you to go into this thinking. Here's what I want you to go into this thinking about. I want you to listen to the story that we're about to engage with while thinking about an ongoing struggle that you might be facing. I want you to think about an ongoing problem or issue or struggle in your life that you feel like you just keep coming back to again and again. It could be a temptation that you just feel like you can't really shake. It could be a set of thoughts that has you held hostage. It could be a relationship that it's been fractured. It could be something that everyone knows about. It could be something that no one knows about. It could be depression, it could be anxiety or an addiction or maybe flirting on the line ethically. I just want you to have that in mind. The thing that in your life maybe feels like you just can't move past right now, or it feels like a struggle to move past. If there's anything that is difficult to move past right now, I'm telling you, you're in the right frame of mind to hear this story that we're going to look at and the loaded question that Jesus is going to ask. Here's what happened. This is in John chapter 5. It says, afterward, Jesus, he returned to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish holy days. And inside the city, near the sheep gate, was the pool of Bethesda. And I'll just stop there for a second. You're like, wait, there was a pool by the sheep gate? Were they in Lancaster County? Yes, right? Okay. Just Waynesboro, Columbia, Montour, don't laugh. It's true for you too. Anyways, there was a sheep gate by the pool of Bethesda with 5 covered porches. Now listen to what happens here. Crowds of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, they lay on the porches next to the pool. And one of the men lying there had been sick for 38 years. Archaeologists have actually discovered the site of this pool in Jerusalem. It's exactly as John describes it here. But what made this pool different than all the other ones around the region at the time were the superstitions about it. People of all different types of sicknesses and ailments would lie around the edges of the pool waiting for the waters to bubble up and to be stirred up. And the idea was, the superstition was, once those waters were bubbled up, they would make a mad dash into the pool. They would climb over each other. They would do whatever they needed to get to the pool, to get in the water. Whoever made it into the pool when the water started bubbling up, they believed would have the potential of being healed. And the rules of the pool were really simple. First come, first served. And this unnamed, paralyzed man had his hopes for healing dashed for 38 years. 38 years of lying on a mat. Now, I didn't have many mats lying around my house. I just grabbed one of Jenny's yoga mats. I'm just going to put it out there. Some of you are praying right now. You're like, dear God, do not let him do downward dog. I can barely touch my toes. I ain't doing that, all right? 38 years. I mean, can you imagine 38 years? 38 years of your life constrained to a 2-foot by 6-foot mat? You can't move? 38 years of pain? 38 years with no other purpose than to just lie there and hope that maybe, just maybe, you might be the first one in the pool when the water gets stirred up, but you can't really do much because your legs are stuck here. Maybe you can move your body a little bit, but that's about it. You are not moving past this. You are confined. You are condemned to this mat right here. And you want healing, and you want hope, and you want to move past this, but time and time again, nothing for 38 years. And I ask, can you imagine? And the truth is, some of you can. Because some of you felt the sting of what it feels like from never getting the thing that you were hoping for the most. You might know what this guy felt. Some of you felt stuck in life, unable to move forward past the things that keep dragging you down. If you've ever felt like there are sins in your life that have weighed you down to the point of spiritual paralysis, and you keep hoping and hoping maybe one day I'll be able to move past this. Maybe one day I'll be able to get up from this place I'm at, but not this day. And then Jesus shows up. And he walks up to this man on the mat, and he asks him a loaded question. That's what Jesus said. He said when Jesus saw him and knew that he had been ill for a long time, he asked him, "Would you like to get well?" What a strange question. Would you like to get well? Now, I wonder what the first thought to go through this guy's mind was. I tell you what mine would have been. Mine would have been, are you kidding me? Are you serious right now? Would I like to get well? I've sat here for 38 years. I've watched person after person after person get healed while mine just sat here and I wasn't able to. Would I like to get well? But see, Jesus, man, he's so brilliant. So brilliant. See, Jesus always asks loaded questions in order to lead us to discovery and breakthrough. Jesus knows something here that some of us have come to discover in our own lives. Jesus knows that the longer we live on the mat, the longer we live with our problems, the longer we live with our struggles, the more likely it is for a couple things to happen to us. First of all, Jesus knows this. The longer we live with our problems and our struggles, the more excuses we end up making for the problems we're living with in the first place. In fact, look what the guy said to Jesus. This is his response. He says, "I can't, sir." Jesus asked him a yes or no question. Would you like to get well? And his answer is, I can't. The sick man said, "For I have no one to put me into the pool. When the water bubbles up, someone else always gets there ahead of me." He really doesn't even answer Jesus, does he? He just tells Jesus why things can't change, why things won't change. He said, "I haven't found the person who's going to help me get in the pool." And he's frustrated by this. And this frustration leads him to revealing something here that Jesus wants him to see. This man reveals in this moment right here by this statement that he's convinced himself that all he needs to be made well in life is a person and a pool. That's what I need most. I just need a person, I need a pool. The man said it himself. He said, if only I had a person and the pool, I wouldn't be like this. You guys know how easy it is? You know it's so easy, right? To fall into the trap of thinking that a person or a pool is the thing that we need most to be fulfilled in life. We all have our if-only statements that are so easy to buy into. We all have our pools that we think will bring us fulfillment. Well, if only, well, Jesus, I would move forward, but if only I got promoted, that's the pool I need. I just need the status. I just need to move up. I just need a promotion. If only I have more money, that's the pool I need. That'll fulfill. If only I was out of debt. If only I was married. If only I wasn't married. Uh-oh. If only we had gotten that house. If only I had more friends. If only I had more followers on social media, then I could build my brand. If only, if only, if only. I've got my pool. I've convinced myself that pool is going to do it for me. That pool is going to heal. That pool is going to bring fulfillment. Here's the irony. This man on the side of the pool that day is looking for hope and healing in the pool, not realizing that standing right in front of him is the one who's able to give him true hope and healing with just a word. And Jesus asked him, "Do you want to get well?" Because it might mean you have to leave your excuses behind. And it might mean you have to turn away from the thing that you've convinced yourself you need the most to be happy. And turn to Jesus instead. But Jesus, I think, also asked this man whether or not he wants to get well because he knows one other thing that happens to us the longer we live with the struggles we face. You know what that is? It's that the longer we live with our problems, the more at home we start to feel with them. The more, I'll say it this way, the more comfortable we get with the things that should make us uncomfortable. I mean, I would imagine after 38 years on that mat was broken in, man. It was comfortable. I mean, like, it was probably well worn. It was conformed to his body. By the way, you guys do you know anybody in your life, like a family member or a friend? They're always talking about physical pain they're facing, and yet they won't take anything for it. You know anybody like that? They won't do anything about it. They talk about how sore they are. They talk about some of you are nudging your husband right now. Anyways, They talk about having a headache, all this, and then you say something perfectly reasonable like, well, let me get you some Tylenol. They're like, no, which is fine. I just feel like if you don't want to do anything to take care of the pain, you forfeit the right to complain about it, all right? So it has nothing to do with the message, but I'm going to get there, okay? It's sort of related because I played sports, most of my life growing up and even into college. And, as I got out of high school and college, then I needed to find something to stay active. And so I tried to find a lot of ways to be active in adulthood. I really got into running in my 30s. But then about 7 years ago, I started experiencing a ton of pain in both my knees. Really, really sharp, debilitating pain, like keeping me from running. And so I finally went to a doctor. I tried to grit it out for about a year or whatever, and finally went to a doctor and found that the cartilage behind my kneecaps was gone. It's not good. And he told me about the options. I was like, well, what are the options then? Because it's painful. He said, all right, well, we could do some injections. That would help a little bit. But what I really need, I feel like right now I'm like 71. This is what 40-year-olds now talk about, right, over coffee. But he's like, but what you really need is surgery to repair it. And so I'm a pragmatist. I'm like, well, how long am I going to have to be off my feet if I have to get surgery? And also, how much is that going to cost? And he told me. And I decided, not now. And I'm still in the not now. Because I'm not sure how it's going to work. I don't really want to, be off my feet for too long. I don't want to have to be off my feet. I don't really want to pay all that money. I had 100 reasons not to, and I had already learned, and here's the other thing, I'd already learned how to manage the pain at that point. And I didn't want the hassle of surgery. Sometimes it's easier to stay in a condition that's familiar, even though it's painful. Are we tracking? There may be things in your life today that are familiar, but they're not the best. And they're not life-giving. And it's bringing you some pain. And you've just grown comfortable with it because it's what's familiar to you. That mat's familiar. But it's not the way you were made to live. It's familiar to ignore the needs of your spouse. That's just the way your family kind of goes, but that's not how God made your family to be. It's familiar to lie and cover up. Done it for a long time. It's familiar. It's not God's best. It's familiar to talk to women or to talk about women in those ways. It's familiar to spend money in those ways, even though it's drowning you. See, this is the curse of familiar. And this happens all the time. The patterns that you and I fall into in life that are not best, that aren't God's best for us, over time become the norm. And I believe today that for some of us here right now, Jesus is trying to wake us up with this question. Do you want to get well? He's trying to wake you up. He's trying to wake me up. He's trying to break us out of the familiar today. And so often, the greatest obstacle that keeps us from being who we want to be in the future and who God created us to be is our present comfort, isn't it? I can't tell you how many people I've talked to over the years who've sat down with me and they articulate a desire to get up and move. They want to get up. They want to get off the mat. They want to go move into a better future that God has for them, but they feel stuck on that mat. They feel like they've found that no person, no pool is going to deliver the kind of life that they want the most. But then as we keep talking and we start talking about what that's going to mean, they start articulating that they're not sure they want to leave the comfort of where they are either. I've sat down from men. I can tell you stories about men that I've sat down with, and I've had them say back to me, wait, hold up, time out, Jason. You mean I can't text her anymore? Like at all? I'm like, no, bro, you're married. Stay married, probably just text your. You want to get well? Stop hanging out with those friends, that group. Well, if you want to break that addiction, you can't keep hanging out with the people who feed it. Them plus you equals regret every weekend. Have you noticed a pattern? Do you want to get well? And it's like Jesus saying, I know you don't want to keep lying here. I know that. But do you realize that if I heal you, you're going to have to get up and walk? You're going to have to move. You're going to have to use some muscles you're not used to moving. You're going to have to go a new direction. Getting well comes with responsibilities. Do you want to get well? See, this is a loaded question because answering it requires we admit that we even need to get well in the first place, doesn't it? And some of us have lived for so long in a condition that has us far from God that we don't even realize we're in need anymore. And Jesus is leaning in today because he wants to wake us up, because God cannot heal what we pretend is not broken. If you don't want to get well, just keep doing exactly what you've been doing. But if you want your future to be different and you want to get well, then you may have to take a step of faith and do something different. And that's exactly what Jesus invites the guy to do. He invites him to place his faith in him, not the pool, not someone else, but in him for the healing he needs most. Look what Jesus said to him. Jesus told him, kind of simple, stand up, pick up your mat, and walk. It's time to walk. It's time to stand up. It's time to pick up the mat and leave the pool behind that you thought was going to provide healing for you. Jesus looks at this man in the eye and says, no person, no pool will ever be able to do for you what I can do. So I'm going to ask you to do something unfamiliar. Stand up, pick up your mat, and walk. Jesus empowers him. Notice this. Jesus empowers him, but Jesus doesn't pick him up, does he? He just speaks a word. Jesus doesn't say, hey, let me help you up here. No. He empowers him. He says, well, you got to stand up. I'll give you what you need for this, but you got to stand. I'll be right beside you, but you got to stand up. See, this is the interplay between our faith and the power of God. Only God's grace and mercy and power are strong enough to heal us and change us in ways we need. It's available to every one of us right now. But he asked that we get up to trust him. That man has not gotten up. He had not gotten up in 38 years, and now he has a moment in truth in front of him, doesn't he? Will he trust that Jesus has the authority to do what no pool could ever do for him? Look what he does. Instantly, the man was healed. And he rolled up his sleeping mat, and he began walking. I just want you to consider what remarkable faith this required right here. The man who had for 38 years placed his faith in a pool now has Jesus in front of him who simply gives a command. Will he trust and move? Will he choose a new object of his faith? This is what it means to place your faith in Jesus right here, if you're wanting to know. This is what it means to trust Jesus. It means you take Jesus at his word and you trust that what he says is for your good, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's unfamiliar. He's right. And that his way is right. I believe Jesus stands in front of us today, stands in front of you today. And he asks a loaded question. Do you want to get well? Do you want to get well today? Do you want to get well? You're going to have to forgive. I know you want to hold on to it. I know it's been 38 years you've been holding on to it. You're going to have to let that go. You're going to have to forgive. Do you want to get well? You're going to have to say sorry. You're going to have to go try to reconcile. Do you want to get well? You're going to have to go tell the truth. I know you've been holding that lie for so long, but do you want to get well? Jesus will ask you to do what's unfamiliar, to stand up, pick up your mat, and walk. It's time for a new day. It's time for a new direction. It's time to get up from where you've been stuck. It's time to turn your eyes from whatever pool you've convinced yourself you need in order to be fulfilled and instead turn to the one who is living water. Take up your mat and walk. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to leave the lies by the pool today. We're going to leave the lies by the pool. We're going to leave the addiction by the pool today. It can stay there because we're getting up and we're walking. We're going to leave the bitterness by the pool today. We're going to leave the resentment by the pool. We're going to leave apathy by the pool because it's a new day. We have a new direction. We're going to walk with you, Jesus. We're going to learn from you, Jesus. We're going to trust you. It doesn't feel familiar. It's not comfortable. But if you say so, I'll trust. Do you want to get well? You know, only Jesus can heal us in the ways that we need most in our life. He's the only one qualified to heal us. I love how Peter talked about this. Peter was one of Jesus' closest followers, and he wrote a letter to some other Christians in the first century. This is what he said at one point. Listen to how he describes Jesus. He says, Jesus, he personally carried our sins. All the stuff that gets us stuck on the mat. He carried our sins in his body on the cross. Why? So we can be dead to sin, like dead to that old life, and live for what's right. And listen to this. By his wounds, you are what? Healed. Stand up. Walk. The healing of our hearts comes by way of his wounds. The mending of our hearts comes from his willingness to be broken for us, to do for us what we could never do for ourselves.